Elle is at a house party with his friend, looking for an easy, carefree and fun night, when suddenly something happens inside him that puts everything in perspective. At first, he simply listens to his friend as he tells him about her girlfriend's possible cheating spree in Stockholm. After being engaged in this silly conversation, the biggest feeling one can ever feel simply crashes into his heart and turns his mind upside down. A girl named Ella passes him by, looks back, exchanges glances with him, and keeps walking. Perhaps she even thinks of this moment as something ordinary, but for Elle, it's like finding another missing syllable of his name, a part of him that he didn't even know was there. In short, he's in love. Walking through the house afterward, he feels as if he were stuck in that same moment until he catches a glimpse of her again. He does something unusual then. He simply walks up to her and gives her the keys to his house. What can he do? He's in love, and if she won't sleep with him, he doesn't even want his house anymore. Naturally, Ella thinks he's a total maniac. Giving the keys back, she follows her friends somewhere else. She still manages to shoot a smile towards him though. Later that night, when the party's over and the girl comes outside, she goes towards her group of friends. As it happens, the macho himself is with them, discussing the possible ways of going through the rest of the night. Everyone wants Ella to tag along, but the girl is too tired. Saying that she will catch a taxi, she breaks herself away from the group and dives into the streets of the night. The city is almost serene at this time. People who are still awake seem like lost souls. Speaking of the lost souls, Elle soon catches up to Ella. The gravity he felt towards her must have been really strong. Playing the role of a positive and witty man, he continues his attempts to spark some interest in Ella's heart. But Ella shows no intention to keep talking with him. In her eyes, Elle is a kind of self-obsessed jerk who's great with his guy friends, but terrible with girls. In short, he's a cool guy. A toxic man who can attract women only with his toxicity. As we can see, Ella is extremely nice to him. At one point, Elle tries to change his approach. Stopping in the street, he tells her that he will now stop bothering her. He thinks he will read a glimpse of confusion in Ella's eyes, a hidden desire in her heart to be chased by a stranger. But as it turns out, Ella has no such desires. After a brief silence, she thanks him and turns away. Naturally, Elle follows after. It might come out as a breach of promise, but what can he do? The man is in love. Running up to her again, he starts talking about his love again, and for a while, Ella yields back and has a conversation with him. It is all until she puts down her mask and asks him genuinely to leave her alone. Nicely and with an honest voice, she emphasizes that she wants to go home alone. This time, Elle sees no point in continuing to joke. Seeing that staying would make him a real creep, he apologizes and runs back in search of his friend to go through the rest of the night with him. It is in the moment when he leaves that Ella feels a strange feeling of emptiness. Perhaps she even regrets pushing him away. And perhaps this is why she laughs in relief and happiness when, in a few minutes, Elle appears running in the street. Of course, it's just a coincidence. Both Ella and Elle laugh and the night stroll continues. The duo goes down into the main busy street, conversing about nothing special. And this time, Ella feels no urge to kick him away. Surprisingly for Elle, however, she still doesn't want to sleep with him. It's truly a strange thing. What Ella would like, however, is some food, and so the duo enters a supermarket in the next scene. Elle walks up to the drinks department, and Ella takes a look at magazines when suddenly a tall man approaches Elle. The girl cannot hear what they are talking about, but clearly, Elle is intimidated by the man. When the latter walks past Ella, he shoots a glance at her that communicates either warning or pity. Elle is a little changed after the encounter. Buying nothing but a bottle of water and some chocolate, they leave the supermarket in search of an interesting conversation. Naturally, this conversation is going to be about the incident that happened at the supermarket. Since Elle never lies, he must tell the truth about it as well. And so he goes on about how he once screwed a friend of this man. There is nothing more to the story. If Ella's image of Elle is correct, the man is clearly lying. Even more, he's been lying about everything so far, because lying is his most developed trait. This is how he gets by on a daily basis. Surprisingly enough, the man is only a little hurt by this. Soon, he actually manages to prove his honesty to her. As it happens, they are standing exactly in front of his apartment building when this happens. Ella realizes that her image of Elle is incorrect, and once she's invited in, she agrees. Until now, neither one of them knew each other's names. And no, it isn't because Elle wants a quick hit and run, he is just embarrassed by his ugly name. No matter what he says though, there is still one thing Ella doesn't believe: his insistence on being in love. Unfortunately enough, this isn't something you can prove by words, but there, sitting on the stairs of his apartment building, the girl comes up with a great way for him to prove it. Ella is actually catching herself and having a lot of fun with him, so perhaps she even wants him to prove it. This is shy. She comes up with a truly wonderful idea. First, Elle should tell her his name, the thing that he is most ashamed of, and then he must run around in the streets. Love truly does demand sacrifices. Elle has no choice but to do everything. His true name is Bartolo. Once this embarrassment is dealt with, running around bearing all in the streets is as easy as a morning stroll for the young man. After hearing her genuine laugh for the first time, he frees himself from his clothes and stands there as Ella puts a tiny glimpse of makeup on him. At this moment, she is the closest she has ever been, and Elle feels lightning bolts going off in his heart. Just like these lightning bolts, he goes outside and disappears from her view. It is when Ella follows him out that she sees him walking with two other people. As it seems, they are either his friends, whom he ran into by accident, or some strangers he hired to help him out. The people are delighted to see love expose itself so clearly, and they are taken aback by the fact that Ella still doesn't believe it. This isn't true, however. Ella does believe, and now that there is no question about it in her mind, she might actually fall in love too. After this romantic detour, the girl feels a little thirsty. Perhaps this is why she initiates what happens next. Both go up to his apartment, and Ella gets a chance to have a better look inside Elle's life. Everything is surprisingly neat and tidy. The entire apartment is perfectly arranged, and clearly Ella likes that. After having a brief tour of the place, Elle shows her the thing he is most proud of. It is the roof. Dawn is breaking over the horizon when the two appear in front of the city landscape. The sky is calm and deep blue, and the two are feeling much closer to one another. When they come down, Ella sits in the living room while the young man prepares some drinks. The girl is visibly anxious. It is obvious that it has been a very long time since she has done something like this. She is in a stranger's apartment, and he just proved his love to her by running around the streets. She is truly in unmapped territory here. At first, she doesn't want to drink, but soon she feels thirsty. As she lights her cigarette and Elle pours her a drink, the man mistakenly initiates a kiss and drills the first hole in their perfect night. It is okay, however. An apology is accepted, and an agreement is made to continue with a deep conversation. Elle wants to know everything about her. The most appropriate approach would, of course, be to start with the obvious stuff, like where she lives and what she does for a living. But as we already know much about Elle, we understand that this isn't going to be the course he will take. Naturally, he just had to jump in and become extremely serious. He wants to know what's wrong with her. Later tonight, he saw the way her friends treated her. It was as if they wanted to take care of her like a fragile glass that was about to be shattered. There is clearly something up, and Elle wants to know all about it. Perhaps this isn't the thing Ella wants to talk about tonight. Perhaps she doesn't even want to remember it, but Elle invites full honesty, and he seems like a safe person too. So the girl decides to open up. As it turns out, she's been going through a very dark year, dealing with problems that are hard to describe in words. She has always felt like, just before Ella manages to get through with this sentence, someone calls the young man, and the conversation is interrupted. Ella sees who it is that was calling, and the desire to share her deepest struggles fades away immediately. Realizing that she made a mistake by letting her vulnerable self out, she decides never to make the same mistake again. This is when Elle comes up with another plan. They can ask each other only 3 questions, but they cannot be on the subject that Ella doesn't want to talk about. As the tension is relieved, Ella asks him if he has a girlfriend. The answer is negative. The second question Ella asks is whether this girlfriend knows about her being here, and the answer is again negative. From this little game, Elle learns that the girl thinks he's a liar who wears his hairstyle pretty well. He also finds out that she doesn't want to kiss him, but still, he leans forward and gives her a brief smooch. Now the girl is angry. He has been making her do things she isn't ready to do, and he has been unable to take no for an answer. He's like a toddler, doing anything in his power to have his way, and until now, this trait of his has been tolerable for Ella, but now she has had enough. Annoyed and upset, she stands up to leave, but the young man stands in her way again. He is either so in love that his body is going against his will, or he's just not used to getting no for an answer. This is the biggest difference between them. Ella is used to not having her way, while Elle just can't stand it. As the girl's rage slowly fades away, he approaches her, until it is Ella who puts her head on his shoulder. There is a warm embrace, a true connection, and a feeling of safety that Ella has been lacking for so long, but soon there is another attempt at kissing. Furious that he cannot control himself, Ella gets out of his apartment. She feels insulted, enraged, and restless. There is no wonder she doesn't want to wait for an elevator to come up. As she goes down the stairs, Elle uses the elevator, and the two appear on the ground floor at the same time. Without saying anything, the young man grabs Ella by the arm, then turns her around, leads her into the elevator, and kisses her lips. This time, there is no resistance. The next morning, Ella is woken up by the stepping noises from the hallway. After a brief reflection on what happened last night, she threw up the curtains and called her mother. During the call, she lies about her worries and gets a little annoyed after the mother reminds her to take her medicine. Hanging up, she reaches into her purse, but for some reason, she decides not to take it today. Being a little nosy, she goes through Elle's perfectly arranged stuff and finds pictures of his girlfriend. He doesn't seem very regretful about last night. On the contrary, she appears to like this activity a lot. Suddenly, when she's in the middle of her investigation, Elle opens the door and asks her how she slept. The morning continues delightfully until Ella's idea to get back in bed is rejected by the young man. When he walks away towards the kitchen to make some coffee, she stands in front of the mirror for a while and starts getting dressed. It is when she comes outside the room too, when her other idea is rejected. She wants to go up to the roof and drink the coffee there, but as Elle says, the neighbors don't like anyone going up there in daylight. This makes Ella's mood even worse, but the worst is still in the future. Soon, smoking will be denied to her too. Everything about the way Elle behaves now assures the girl that he is no longer interested in her. Still, she tests her suspicions by asking him if he can postpone his errands for tomorrow and spend the day with her if they are not so important. As Elle says, the errands are only as important as errands can be, but unfortunately, he cannot postpone them. Maybe some other time. This last sentence is the last nail in the coffin. It is all understandable now. The fake smiles and the not-so-important errands. Going to the bathroom, Ella feels an immense amount of terrible weight on her shoulders. Furious at herself, she leans towards the window and scolds herself for being so stupid last night. How could she fall for such a trap? In one reactive motion, she smashes her head into the mirror, but thankfully, the glass turns out to be more stable than her emotional state at this moment. Unfortunately though, blood appears to be dripping down from her forehead. In a few minutes, she comes out of the bathroom and leaves a small stain of blood on Elle's white wall. Now the apartment isn't so neat and tidy anymore. Going into the kitchen, she gets an offer to take a shower, while Elle leaves for his errands. She can come out then, have breakfast, and close the door on her way out. The plan is just so perfect, but it is only perfect for the young man. Holding a towel in front of the bathroom, she realizes that she doesn't want to do what he says anymore. In fact, she will do the opposite. As she stands there in front of the door, Elle goes into his room and reflects on something heavily. It seems that he can sense that something is wrong. Coming out at a quick pace, he tells her that he has changed his mind. He doesn't want her to take a shower anymore. She wants to leave the apartment with her, but this will never happen. Here, tension becomes higher, and bit by bit, the story enters its most thrilling and restless part. It is an awfully uncomfortable experience for the young man as she realizes Ella's new endeavor. No matter what, she won't leave the apartment. She knows that the man is in love with her, so naturally he must have no problem with it. And it will be okay if her girlfriend arrives suddenly and finds out all about them. Elle will explain everything to her and continue his life with the true love he found. Bit by bit, the man becomes more and more bitter and resentful. Not getting his way, anger starts bubbling up in his mind, and it all explodes when Ella tries to light her cigar in his room. Smacking her hand in one reactive motion, he thinks he has taken care of this new problem of his with his aggressiveness, but little does he know that it is just the beginning. As he tramps towards the living room, Ella follows. Standing in the doorway, she suddenly starts laughing. Elle is a little confused at first, but soon he laughs too. What a cheerful situation indeed. Here, Ella explains the motive behind her actions. Yesterday, she had sex against her will. She didn't want to do it, but still, the man insisted and got his way. Granted, it was great, but she regrets it immensely now. This is why she has no intention to follow his will anymore. Last night was about winning, and this morning will be about winning too. And just like in any game, only one will be victorious in this one too. Either Ella stays and wins, or she leaves and loses. Sitting in the living room, Elle is trembling in discomfort. Trying to justify his lies, he addresses many different paths, but unfortunately for him, nothing works. Ella is still not convinced that she should leave his apartment. He can try all kinds of mind games and all kinds of arguments. He can shout and scream or call the police. Ella doesn't care. In the end, the guy seems to yield. Tramping towards his room again, he grabs his coat and says that someday she will have to leave anyway. Perhaps this sentence makes him feel a bit better, but soon a realization comes to him. The keys to his apartment are missing. The beginning of last night's adventure appears in his mind then. He was so eager to give her the keys to his apartment back then, and it seems the girl is now using his words to her advantage. As Elle runs around the apartment in search of it, she remains calmly sitting in his room. This is when another game is offered to play. If Elle doesn't want to search for her, he can ask 3 questions to find out where they are. Ella will have a chance to ask him anything she wants to know too. Now that the young man is failing to have his way, he has turned into an unpredictable fool. This is why, in the end, after nothing but puzzles and tough questions are given to him, he loses his temper completely. Just like he did last night, Ella tries to kiss him 3 times and finds herself lying on the floor after the 3rd attempt. An immeasurable amount of pain and regret comes to her then. And as tears start to fall from her face, she stands up and throws the keys in his face. She understands very well why he doesn't want her to be here. Last night, he didn't get the chance to tell his girlfriend not to come by, so she could come at any moment. Elle has the face of a man anymore. When Ella finally disappears behind the bathroom door, he gets an urge to somehow turn the situation around. When Ella comes out, she finds a note on the kitchen counter, telling her to come up on the roof. One apologetic man, a cup of coffee, and a pleasant breeze are waiting for her there. She doesn't want an apology now, though. There is no way that this relationship is saved, so sitting up on the edge, she starts telling him about her feelings last night. As it turns out, a strong feeling came over her immediately after catching a glimpse of him at the party. This was even before he came up to her. She wanted to be with him, and she was happily surprised when he came up to her, but the reason she was so reluctant was very simple. Nobody has ever loved her. There is no question about it. She wanted to believe that Elle was truly in love with her, but deep down she didn't want to take the risk of finding out it was a lie. The young man has no idea what to say in this situation. Who knows what the perfect thing to do would have been, but the course he takes is definitely not helpful. Setting his foot on a loop, he tries to take the girl with him. To say it more precisely, he tells her that they can still hang out sometimes. She can accept his apology, forget all about this terrible morning, spend the entire day with him, and agree to keep hanging out from time to time. Who knows, Ella's curse might be broken then, and someone might actually fall in love with her. Even the fear of loneliness can be turned into a distant nightmare. When Elle goes downstairs to get some more coffee, she looks back at the city, turns around, puts her legs over the edge, and lets go.